another Crucible tutorial. Today we'll be looking at another replay. This one will be for the Mont'ka for the Tau. Now, whether to go Mont'ka or Crute depends on your playstyle and especially your opponent. I decided to go Mont'ka in this replay because our opponents are Orcs and the Crute struggle to push in versus Orcs because of the turrets they have everywhere, on everything. And you can't exactly, they don't exactly have a lot of ranged units that you can tie up in melee, so you're just fighting melee with melee, which isn't super efficient. So, start our build order, builder, cappers, builder, capper. So the reason we went for Gwevesa this time is because they provide ranged firepower. One of the main problems with dealing with Orcs in the early game is their grot gangs. They can just overwhelm you with sheer numbers, and if you go for stealth suits, a squad of stealth suits cannot fight the grot gang, and so you're stuck with whatever combat units you can get out of your barracks. Gwevesa, on the other hand, can actually fight the grot gang reasonably well. As you can see, 5 of them have more HP than 8 of these guys, and they do good damage in ranged especially, but also decent enough to hold their own in melee. We're going for Fire Warriors first. The reason for this is that Breachers can again get tied up by melee units that the Orcs have, and whilst they would be good, they are difficult to manage. This is meant to be a relatively easy build order, and Breachers require a lot of micro and a lot of babysitting, and Pathfinders aren't particularly good versus Orcs unless they go Commanders, so Fire Warriors it is. They're a generally good choice. So, standard situation, barracks, 2 plasma generators, and now just capping all the listening posts, contesting the middle from the grot gang, and there we go. Now time to try to take control of the middle. I try to see if I can decap this, but they already have control of it, so there's no point. So now trying to control the middle. Getting all the upgrades on the listening post. Again, this is super important. You need to get these as soon as possible. And time to try to get a few more generators to get my power up and to go to tier 1. There we go. Tier 1 started. 4th generator. I capped the middle, so now putting a listening post on the middle. And yeah, so let's pause here for a second. If instead of 3 squads of Gwevesa, I had 3 squads of stealth suits, I would not be able to fight this. A squad of Slugger Boys, Grot Gang, and a shooter would absolutely annihilate me. I only have 1 real combat unit, which is Fire Warriors, which would get tied up and shot down. Because I have Gwevesa, I have a ranged, I have a tanky unit, a cheap tanky unit, which can serve as front line for my squishy infantry. So I got into tier 1. Since I heard grot gangs shooting their cannons, I need to get some anti-vehicle to deal with them, and that's the battlesuits. I play a bit more aggressively here. I could sit back, reinforce all of my listening posts to tier 2 and go from there. However, I try to push the Orcs a bit using the broadside battlesuits. So, as you can see in this fight, imagine if this was 1 squad of Fire Warriors and broadsides instead of Gwevesa. Yeah, as you can see, these guys do a very good job of tanking, enough so that I'm able to kill the entire squad of Sluggers and trade with their shooter boys. Now I get some squads of Breachers, main reason being that I require some anti-building in order to efficiently push through their defenses, and Breachers are the anti-building. Yeah, as you can see, Guavessa are doing a good job of tying up the mech. Need to shoot him. And I also got a squad of Pathfinders to deal with the hero. Yeah, I'm going for a lot of units to try to push the Orcs in. You could sit back at this point and go up in tiers. I'll show you how to do that. It'll be a bit delayed to where you should be able to do it, but I want to show how to do an aggressive push in tier 1 with Tau, Mont'ka, and this is how. You tank push with broadsides, and you have a bunch of ranged firepower to deal with anything that tries to approach the broadsides. I also get the hero. It has versatile weaponry, and I can also get the anti-vehicle missile launchers if I need extra anti-vehicle. I go for Guidance Beacon. It is generally a less versatile, more cheesy specialized option, but I want to do an aggressive push into the enemy base, so I go for it. If you want a more general versatile option, I would recommend going for the vehicle bay instead. So yeah, I'm able to hold back the Orc vehicles. And I'm able to get one of the listening posts off them, kill a few wall banners, and push them back into the base, forcing units. So this is the cheese, where you queue up 3 squads of gun drones, and then you send them in as your front line. And I decide to go for Mont'ka. And there we go. Drones are sent in, and they will do the tanky. So against most other factions, a multiple squad vehicle unit like this would be difficult to deal with. Unfortunately, the Orcs have all of these guns that, despite not necessarily being anti-vehicle, they still deal good enough damage in order to deal with the drones. So that attack fails, but that's the idea. Versus factions that aren't Orcs, you can spam the gun drones to distract the enemies, especially if they don't have a lot of anti-vehicle, or if they mismanage their anti-vehicle and their anti-infantry shooting at the gun drones instead of your infantry. So we've gotten tier 2, second HQ, in order to go up in tier, as I realized that the attack isn't gonna work out super well. And I decided to start going for Barracudas again to deal with this massive fortification of Orcs. I also, since I realized that I can't push into their main base, I decided to rotate my attention upwards towards the other listening post in order to take down and limit their economy further. It doesn't work as well versus harder AI because they cheat their resources, and oh, they're actually out of resources regardless because they kept spamming units. Huh, I guess it does make a difference. It doesn't make as much of a difference, where if this was versus a player, they would have run out of resources ages ago. But yeah. So, more generators. At some point I got the upgrades on the Mont'ka. And now we just take control of the rest of the map. So, now that I am tier 2, time to get some battle suits and start upgrading the listening post as well for economy reasons. All the battle suits have their own specializations and their own weapons, so I recommend you going for each of them and figuring out what they're good at. Whilst it's true that you can spam the tier 4 ones and they'll be good versus most things, there are situations where their tier 3 ones will work better. Time to get another HQ. So because battle suits are very power heavy, you need more HQs going for Mont'ka than you do if you're going for other factions. Oh yeah, I tried to attack the Orcs again, but again, just the amount of just shooty turrets that they have is quite difficult to deal with. Especially with stuff like the Grot cannons with zap guns. Time to go for tier 3. Again, more power in order to deal with the enemy. And I have most of the map controlled. And time to get the Sunfire battle suits. And now I decide to get some crude in order because as you can see, I'm floating requisition. This is one of the interesting things that you can do with Tau, is that no matter if you're going for one or the other as primarily your thing, if you have floating a lot of power or a lot of requisition, you can either substitute in more battle suits or more crude into your composition as a way to dump that specific resource. So I go for some Vespids, the crude alpha Narlock Rider, and the battle suits, as you can see, they have their plasma rifles. Another thing is that the commander, so the fusion vessels on the Bloody Guards do a lot of building damage, and the commander in themselves also has a weapon which does a lot of building damage. So since I'm only tier 2 as far as crude are concerned, I decide to go for crude hawks rather than, well, I don't have access to the Narlocks. And yeah, jump the commander in. The commander, as you can see, does ridiculous anti-building damage, and at this point it's GG. Yeah, obviously you could do this a lot earlier than 22 minutes. I decided to go for an early push and for early aggression, and had 2 failed attacks where my entire army died. But that was to showcase what builds you can go for at different tiers, where I showed what you can do in tier 1 as an attack wave, what you can do in tier 2 as an attack wave, and now this is your tier 3 with a tier 2 crude lagging behind option. And I'm also, I think, did I get tier 4 at some point? No, the building is tier 3 now, right? Yeah, Coalition Center is your economy building, by the way. So, as you can see, as soon as I finish building it, my economy goes up and time to build another HQ. So if this game wasn't over, if I wasn't destroying the base, this is the continuation. You get more HQs, you want to keep your power either even, more or less even, or above your requisition if you're going for battle suits, just because they cost a lot of power and they are infantry. So you will also need to either go for crude or go for vehicles in order to actually use the vehicle cap. So yeah, that was the game. Hopefully that was useful and showed you a few different compositions that you can go with primarily Mont'ka. And see you guys in the next one.